Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. In this session, we will be discussing from the 15th verse of the 9th chapter of the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. This chapter describes the passing away of Bhishma Deva in the presence of Lord Krishna. Yatra dharma suto raja gadapanir vrikodaraha krishnostri gandivam chapam suhrit krishnas tato vipat. The meaning of this 15th verse is, oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. So this is a verse spoken by Bhishma. He is describing the influence of time, kala. It is irreversible under all circumstances. Now he is explaining, look at the situation of the Pandavas. Particularly mentions three personalities among the Pandava brothers, and he also mentions Krishna. Now the Pandava situation is such that there are reverses, even though Yudhishthira is a strict follower of all religious principles. And Bhima is a very powerful fighter with the club. He is an expert fighter. And Arjuna is another great fighter with his mighty Gandiva bow. Above all these, the Supreme Lord Krishna is the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. All the Pandavas are pure devotees of Krishna. So, why is it that the Pandavas had to suffer so much of reversals? So, that is being explained by Bhishma Deva, who is a Mahajana, who is the greatest authority in helping us understand the workings of this material world. So he is telling it is the influence of Kala, inevitable time. Nobody can reverse it under any circumstances. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, as far as the material or spiritual resources were required, there was no scarcity in the case of the Pandavas. The Pandavas had ample resources, both material and spiritual. Material resources, we have heard how Yudhishthira was the son of Dharma personified, Yamadharmaraya. He was strictly following the religious principles. And both Bhima and Arjuna were very powerful fighters. Bhima with his club and Arjuna with his Gandiva bow. Nobody could defeat them. They were very, very, very powerful. So in spite of all these material resources, and as far as spiritual resources concerned, Lord Krishna was directly the well-wisher of all the Pandavas. All the Pandavas were pure devotees of Krishna. So, there is no scarcity of any resource for the Pandavas. Materially, they were well equipped because of two great warriors, Bhima and Arjuna. Spiritually, Yudhishthira and Krishna. Yudhishthira was the symbol of religion, and Krishna, the personality of Godhead, was always personally connected with the affairs of the Pandavas. He was their best well-wisher. So, how come there were reverses on the side of the Pandavas? So, it is said by Srila Prabhupada in this purport, despite the power of pious activities, the power of personalities, the power of expert management, and the power of weapons under the direct supervision of Lord Krishna, the Pandavas suffered many practical reverses, which can only be explained as due to the influence of Kala, inevitable time. So, it is explained here, Kala is identical with the Lord Himself, and therefore the influence of Kala indicates the inexplicable wish of the Lord Himself. It's the Lord's wish. Kala is carrying out the wish of the Supreme Lord. Wish of the Supreme Lord. Everything is going on according to the will or wish of the Supreme Lord. There is nothing to be lamented when a matter is beyond the control of any human being. So as human beings, we are very, very tiny, insignificant creatures. We have to do our duties depending upon the Lord. And our aim should always be to go back home, back to Godhead, where we actually are meant to live eternal, blissful life full of knowledge in the association of the Supreme Personality of God. Because here, both happiness and distress are effect of the illusory energy. Though we prefer happiness than distress, it is actually illusory. Both happiness and distress are illusory. They are effect of the illusory energy. So the transcendentalists advise us, follow the religious principles under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master in the association of great Vaishnavas, and come to the platform of self-realization, where you will be able to perceive the effect of the illusory energy as either illusory happiness or illusory distress. That's called the duality of this material world. Dvandva mohena bharata. Dvandva moha. So that is the nature of this material existence. Nobody can change that. So therefore we are advised, you do your duties depending on Krishna and always have the single pointed aim of going back to Godhead, to associate with Krishna in His personal abode where we actually belong. In the 16th verse, it is said, Nahyasya karhichit rajan puman veda viditsitam yad vijignyasaya yukta muhyanti kavayopihi. The meaning of this 16th verse is, this is Bhishma addressing Yudhishthira. O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord, Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. So it's a fact that by analyzing things in this material world, by becoming learned in the Vedic literature, one cannot ascertain what is exactly the plan of the Lord in different times, in different places, for different people. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Kavayopihi, muhyanti, they are bewildered. So Prabhupada explains this in the purport. The bewilderment of Maharaj Yudhishthira over his past sinful acts and the resultant sufferings is completely negated by the great authority Bhishma. Yudhishthira was lamenting, I am responsible for the massacre of millions of people in this battle of Kurukshetra. Just to enthrone me, so many people had to die. So, he was bewildered by seeing the number of deaths. And therefore, this bewilderment is completely negated by Bhishma. Now, what is Bhishma's position? One of the 12 authorized Mahajanas, those who know religion perfectly. Among the created beings, only 12 personalities are described as authorities in understanding the workings of nature. Bhishma wanted to impress upon Maharaj Yudhishthira that since time immemorial, no one, including such demigods as Shiva and Brahma, could ascertain the real plan of the Lord. Shiva and Brahma are the topmost devatas. Topmost devatas. Of course, above them is Vishnu or Krishna. But other than Vishnu or Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord, everyone else is unable to properly understand what is the plan of the Lord. So what can we understand about it? We, human beings on the earth, what can we understand? When great devatas like Brahma and Shiva themselves cannot understand the plan of the Lord, human beings can never understand it. It is useless also to inquire about it, about the plan of the Lord. Rather, we should abide by the orders of the Lord, the instructions given by the Lord, and pray to the Lord for His mercy to be able to maintain the single desire to go back to Godhead in His association, in Krishna's association, Krishna's personal abode, as a pure devotee of the Lord. This is the whole program. Other than this, everything else is simply the reactions, actions and reactions of the kala, karma, that's all, interactions. So it is not very wise to make plans trying to understand the working of kala. You can never understand. So Prabhupada says, even exhaustive philosophical inquiries of great sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. Great sages also do not know exactly what is the plan. So we are instructed by the acharyas, by our spiritual master, that simply abide by the orders of Krishna without argument. There are people who argue, who get into debates, but they are never able to ascertain the truth or the reality of this material world. It's bewildering, even for the greatest of philosophers. So, it is now being concluded that the sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds. Pandavas are pure devotees. They are participating in Krishna's Leela in the material world. The Lord had to execute the plan of establishing the kingdom of virtue, and therefore His own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. So this is Krishna's plan. Even His devotees have to temporarily suffer. Because after this, Yudhishthira is going to rule. Everything will be very nice. After the passing of Bhishma Deva. Bhishma Deva was certainly satisfied by seeing the triumph of virtue. And he was glad to see King Yudhishthira on the throne, although he himself fought against Yudhishthira. Bhishma is also a pure devotee. He's doing his duty of fighting on the side of Kauravas because he's being maintained by Kauravas. But Bhishma was certainly very happy because Yudhishthira was ascending the throne. Even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kurukshetra. Why? Because Lord Krishna wanted to show that vice cannot conquer virtue. Virtue is always the supreme. Bhishma Deva was a great devotee of the Lord, but he chose to fight against the Pandavas by the will of the Lord. It is the will of the Lord that Bhishma Deva should fight against the Pandavas. Why? Because the Lord wanted to show to the whole world that if powerful fighter like Bhishma cannot win on the wrong side, he's taken the side of the Kauravas, he can never win even though he's the most powerful fighter. Because that is the will of the Lord. Okay? I'll stop here. Thank you very much.